Welcome everyone to the first meeting of the Dewey Beach Comp Plan Committee. We have the agenda here. Let me bring it up and we can go over it. Everyone see that?
Yep.
For a minute. Right now, my mouse decided to give me some problems. Okay. First order of business, why don't we do the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, welcome. And so with us today, roll call, Julie Johnson and Phil Winkler, members of the committee. Jimmy O will be on in a moment, I think. Gary, our committee liaison, and Bill Zolper, our town manager. Let's take a look here. What I'd like to do today is briefly review last year's progress from the memo that Bill, you put out last June, July, and the notes of what we made from our September meeting of the last year's committee, just to do a quick recap on that. And then really what I was hoping to do, rather than wait until June, July and just look at the committee, you look at the report that you file, actually look at the things that you would like to accomplish this year, be ahead of the curve rather than behind it, and give a little input or just understand better what your focus and priorities are. So that's what we're looking to accomplish today. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda as written?
So
I'll make a
moved.
motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so sounds like we're in good shape there. Okay, let me share. This is from last year's data report, June 25th. Bill, your document on the things that you accomplished, or the overall status of things. Actually, let me go and do the other document first. Give me just a second. And I can try to kind of juxtapose these two so we can, I don't know if I can get them quite side by side here, but see if I can get it to the point where we can at least kind of review it in concert together. Give me a second. Can you folks see that okay? Close enough, right? Okay. So nothing, and Bill, as we go through each section, would you give us your thoughts and ideas for what you're thinking you want to do this year?
Sure.
Demographics and population.
So Jim Dedes and I went over this twice this past week. We looked at the whole packet, and we went through and made some notes and adjustments. And when it comes to graphics and population, we left it at not started yet.
Sounds good. I think that's a very, let's see, that's a tough one to quantify anyway, isn't it? So, okay. Housing.
So when we got to housing, we moved up the work to identify and define the character of those residential communities. That was a lot of the work that was done as I was just being hired, I think, with the code, especially for the north end of town. There was a lot of work done on that. Speaking with Jim, we felt that was completed. And then looking at the last the last box there, consider development implementation of the GIS-based system for tracking codes, violation license permits, and other housing data. We don't actually at this point are using a GIS-based system, but that is something we could consider in the future. So that's still not developed yet.
Okay. Anything in the affordable housing bucket for this? It's kind of one that, we've got enough priorities. This one's a tough one to focus on at the time, but any consideration on that?
So it's been a conversation in Rehoboth. We really haven't had the conversation here. It's been a conversation in Ocean City about affordable housing for our summer employees, whether they work for the town and trying to get someplace where they can live, given the wages that we pay them. Rehoboth's having a tough time with it. In Ocean City, actually, they have like a older building that they purchased, like a dorm. When you think about those type of dorms, a lot goes along with it. Okay, it's a great idea, but we're limited here in Dewey, 1 mile and 2 blocks. And as was said by Phil in the previous meeting, the property here is so expensive. And then you have to think about the liability if something should go wrong inside these dormitories if we end up going in that direction. So those are things that I've discussed with the town manager in Rehoboth and with our lifeguard captain and the lifeguard captain in Rehoboth to just try to figure out how we can get affordable housing for our folks. But we really don't have a good answer for that right now.
Sure. You got to have an RA for those guys, right?
Yeah, that'd be a really tough job. And
yeah, it would.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that'd be a great use for Izzy Plaza, or the Walsh land across from the Starboard, turn into a dormitory for servers.
Time on the in-house, the originals were named.
Okay. And Jim, welcome. We got you here, and thanks. Glad you were able to join in. We just went over the agenda and approved that. We're just digging into the what we accomplished last year and having Bill walk us through what his thinking and plans are for the coming year. Okay. Anything on land use and annexation?
so I think, it was discussed last year about the Forgotten Mile, and talking with Jim Dedes about it. He lived in Seabreeze for a number of years, and his feelings that he felt that a lot of the folks that live in the town, are in the community of Seabreeze, would not be interested in being annexed by the town of Dewey Beach. And then we also have Bay Vista in there. I think that would be kind of tough because you've got the canal in between. We really have to show what they would gain by coming into the town of Dewey. Possibly police, but right now they're covered by the state police. So as far as annexation of the Forgotten Mile, I'm not sure if the folks in that area would really see the benefits from it.
Right. It might be something that we want to bring up just from the climate change committee and other committees and discussing that kind of thing. There's this talks more about future building proportion to fit within. So there's been a lot of activity in the last year on these, and then I guess that goes into the annexation bucket. Sure impacts future development.
So in the one ensuring impacts of future development, that one, Dawn has been working very hard, attending FEMA classes by Zoom to get the town involved. So and up to like a certification almost, so we could be part of the county's emergency funding if we should ever have a major event. So for that is ongoing. We need to change that to ongoing.
Yeah, or under consideration or under activity, right, at this point. Okay.
Right.
Was there a section here? Redevelopment, underutilized blighted parcels.
Yeah, we don't have much of that here in town. We do have the park, Sunset Park, And part of the grant that we're looking at is infrastructure, and we would consider using some of that money maybe to improve Sunset Park.
Architect redevelopment, give me a second, I'm just reading through these. Something that Don brought up in the prior meeting about the, bringing properties up to code standards and things like that, I guess, but that's not really identified in this. This is more redevelopment and design standards, right? This is not so much the maintenance or upkeep of property, right?
It's about pieces of property in the town that aren't kept up. I mean, it talks about parcels that are blighted, they just don't look. And really here in Dewey, there's some older places that may fall under that. And then one of the things we're trying to do is possibly bring in a person part-time to assist Dawn in actually being more on the ground out in the town, looking at some of these where people have trash, where people haven't kept their houses up, painting broken fences, things like that. And we could actually, start working with them to get those improved.
Right. That's a little more specific than most of these that are listed here, though. Okay, sounds good. Okay, anything on transportation that you want to share?
So it's pretty much ongoing. Been working with DelDOT. For example, the project we have going on in the Center Island right now. Originally, there was supposed to be no work done on Fridays. Because of the snowstorm, both snowstorms, we've been set back probably 2.5 weeks, 2 weeks. So been working with DelDOT, got approval for them to work on Fridays up till 2 o'clock. But they have to be off the site by 2 o'clock. So.
Okay. Oh, seasonal peak hour congestion and such, right? Coordinated
Right.
traffic signal. Is anything done on the truck traffic recently? And the loading zones, that kind of stuff?
I mean, really, there's not many options. If you tell these trucks that they can't stop on Route 1 to unload, then they go on the side streets, and then they end up going down the side streets. This is a perfect example of that. They'll end up going down there and they end up turning around. And when they try to turn around down there, they end up tearing the pavement up. And then we have to have DelDOT come in and try to repave those surfaces. Mm-hmm. So it's, if you have them stopped out on Route 1, we don't have that issue. But then you have people that are trying to pull out of streets, and you have the bikes that have to go around the trucks. So there's really no good answer to that. Rehoboth tried having deliveries done at night or really early in the morning. And because of scheduling and traffic, they weren't able to enforce it.
Right. Yeah. How about the pedestrian and bicycle safety and convenience? Anything on that front?
So we're hoping this spring, this summer, to have DelDOT come in. We want to set up a day where they come in and talk about bicycle safety. We'll probably do it on Dagsworthy Street. We have tried to improve the crosswalks by putting extra markings down, whether they walk their bikes across or ride their bikes across. But we do have the shoulders. They are marked as bike lanes. There is an issue with some of the curbing that does stick out. That was a DelDOT project before I got here. And some of the bikers, when they're keeping their heads down for some periods and they look up at the last minute, they have hit those curbs. I've talked to DelDOT about that. As of right now, they're not willing to make the changes on those curves.
And
This one, go ahead, Julie.
my biggest issue with bike safety is the people that go southbound in the northbound lanes on bikes or vice versa. Because when you're, especially like I live on New Orleans Street, you can only turn right. And so my attention is focused to the left, oncoming traffic. And if someone all of a sudden zooms by at the last minute on a bike coming from my right, which is southbound in the northbound lanes, it's definitely hazardous. it's a concern.
Right, it's an ongoing effort. Now, the police department actually gets federal funding to go out and enforce pedestrian crossing and bicycle safety. So when they're out there working, it's like a federal pay job at night. That's what they're looking for, and I'm sure you're familiar with it, for pedestrians crossing the road where they're not supposed to be crossing, and also bicycles going the wrong way up and down the road. And I know they have been doing it. Two friends of mine coming from Nalu one night were biking the wrong way, and they got stopped and issued tickets.
That's the first I've heard of anybody actually getting ticketed.
They have to those pay jobs from the federal, they have to justify, we're getting the funding. As you know, we have to be writing the tickets for the violation.
Makes sense.
This one about adequate and secure bicycle parking seems like low-hanging fruit. Is that something you guys have talked about or planned?
Yeah, so we've been pushing hard with the business community here for them to help us putting more bike racks out. Since I've been here, we've put out 5 new bike racks. We actually have 2 on Bellevue Street right now. We have one there on the corner where there was some real issues with larger vehicles parking in that one parking spot. So we've made it complete bike parking for now. And then down at the end of Bellevue Street on the project we did down there, there was also a donated bike rack. There was also a bike rack donated down on Dickinson Street, Bayside, and then a bicycle rack donated on Van Dyke Street. So we're continuing to push those as much as possible, to have people, instead of driving, actually come in and use their bikes.
So that one's well underway, so that'll be marked
Yeah.
in an underway column, or, whatever is appropriate at the current
Yeah,
time.
Jim and I had that moved up to ongoing.
Yep. And the educational, that sounds like the Del Dot, program that you're talking about with bicycle safety, that's already ongoing. Okay, good. Parking strategy, parking issues. How about anything on the general parking conditions and situation?
So as you know, we changed the requirements for commercial establishments, restaurants, no longer need to have parking if they're under 4,000 square feet. So that has changed parking requirements for businesses here in Dewey.
Yeah, that Bill, well, that was just in the RB2 zone,
Right.
not the other two. I know that there was a question during that discussion that came up about what we mean here by pursuing funding for a comprehensive parking study for the town. Are we talking about just, or should we be talking about just those parking spaces that are town managed, right-of-way spaces, or are we talking about something, or should we be talking about something more comprehensive that would incorporate the business entities and even residential, for that matter, if you wanted to really broaden it? So I'm just wondering if there should be some sort of an effort to at least get our arms around what a comprehensive parking study might mean just for those spaces that are managed by the town.
Well, that plus understanding, the volumes we're dealing with and how many people on a given, weekend night in season, for instance, are searching for a parking spot and, having trouble finding it. If there's a way to define that problem and magnitude of it. We all know there's parking issues.
Yeah.
Do we have any sense of how, the details of how bad that is?
So if you look at the center of town, that's where the parking issues really are heavy. You go to the north end of town, there's usually parking. And if you go to the extreme south end of town, there's usually parking. People just don't want to have to walk as far. But if the committee decides that we should do a parking study, I'm more than happy to look into it and see how much it's going to cost. And I could let the committee know how much something like that is, just not with business parking, but as Gary said, all parking in the town.
I would think that's a good idea to get some, progress started on that. Anybody else?
Hey, Bill, I have one question or concern. I know, it was either last year or the year before that they went and marked all like the driveways, so with the yellow paint, so that people couldn't, would know that that's a driveway and they can't park there. Y'all pave or Del Dot pave the end of New Orleans Street, that isn't really marked at all. And what used to be there from what was old pavement, you can't even really see the lines anymore as far as the parking spots. And I know it's not obviously a concern here in the winter because people who've been coming here know that, you know, it's kind of angular parking down there. But if we could look at maybe marking that so that people park correctly once the season does start, so we're not having issues with that, would be
Okay,
just a
and-
suggestion.
Yeah, and we did not finish marking all the driveways. We stopped on St. Louis Street. It's one of the things I'm considering this year is at least marking the first block in the north end and consider marking the second block in the north end. But when I talk to the folks up at the north end, the more vocal ones that are against marking the parking their driveways, especially the ones on the second block, they continue to say they don't have any problem with people blocking their driveways. They don't need it done. So I'll be looking at, but the first block from basically Chesapeake to St. Louis is going to be marked this summer, the driveways.
Okay, well, like I said, while you're doing that, if you could just take a look at New Orleans Street and getting that remarked, that would be great, because I think it would save some hassles down the road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Julie, Jimmy, Phil, what do you think about, asking Bill to look into what the cost of a parking study would be?
I think that's a good idea. It's nowhere nearly as bad as it used to be a couple of years ago. And I guess it's the Center City district that has the biggest problem, without a doubt.
Yeah. Julie, you have support for that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, especially, I mean, obviously, I live on New Orleans Street, which is one of the busiest streets
Mhm.
in town as far as parking's concerned. So, I mean, even in the off season, on the weekends, it's hard to find a parking spot on my street on the ocean side. So, I would not be against it, that's for sure.
You bet. Jimmy?
So quick question. So something like that, if I go out and look at 2 or 3 different firms that could do that, and they come back and, it's anywhere between, I don't know, $35,000 and $70,000. It could be more, could be less. Do I come back to the committee, let you know that, you vote and say, we think that would be money well spent, and then that's taken to the commissioners, and then the commissioners say they agree with that? Is that how that process would work?
I think we can skip having to come back to us on it and just go to the commissioners. I mean, all we're looking to do is understand and influence, maybe a little bit, some priorities here. So you don't need to come back to us for it. I think it can go straight to, the council as an issue. I mean, that's my take anyway. I wouldn't want to delay the process for that.
I'm just wondering why we would want to spend this amount of money. Isn't it obvious that the problem is there's not enough space? And once again, you define the problem. There's not enough space. So we build a parking garage down at Ruddertown, or at the end of New Orleans is a great place to have a huge parking garage, I think, on the left-hand side of the street. Just kidding.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to know how severe the problem is before they can design the right solution. I mean, a 3 or 4 story deck, parking garage, would help. We all agree in the center of town somewhere, but we have to estimate what the cost of something like that would be. So, but you have to know, is that sufficient? Is that really going to alleviate the problem? So you can do both kind of at the same time. I'm not sure the funding for this, how that would be appropriated, but I do think it's important to at least begin to move on this. I'll give you a personal insight. Our little place on Swedes, it's hard to find a parking space any weekend off season or on anymore. And we're heading into the north end, but it's difficult even that far up in the north end. So it sounds like we'd like to see a little bit of effort put forward in this and at least getting started. I think we all agree there's a problem here, and it might be a good time to sink a little money into it, given the town's reserves at this point. Okay. Community services and facilities. Let's see. Anything on that front?
What page are you currently on?
Six.
Page 6.
6.
6, okay. So for pursuing resources for upgrading law enforcement holding facilities, we're proposing new town hall and police station. I did the estimates, or not the estimates, the proposals out to 3 firms last week. Approximately $7,000 for each of the 3 to give us back an initial design of town hall and police station over on the lot. There's 2 lots actually where code enforcement currently sits. So we are, that is ongoing. If I don't know if we want to bump it up to that or underway.
Yeah, I think that one, town's facilities, including town hall, that's already in a, it's that first, 4th column. That's ongoing, right? It's already in an ongoing status there, right? Okay. Okay. Okay, natural resources.
So at the bottom of page 6, pursuing funding to improve lighting in key areas. So, we, Representative Schwarzkopf provided us $50,000 at CTF funds for the north end of Dewey, from basically 1 and 1A up to Bayard Avenue. They are going to install 4 new lights up there. That they've been ordered. We're just waiting for the lights to come in. They've already run the power. They've already done the work underneath the surface. It's a matter for those lights to come in. So that's ongoing. And then pursue funding to install more surveillance cameras in key locations. I'll be coming before the commissioners this Friday to use about $30,000 in ARPA funds. It was approved by the ARPA attorneys to upgrade some of our cameras and antennas here in town. We lost an antenna when the lighthouse burnt down. We need to get that replaced. This will enable us to actually visually see some areas that we currently can't, that are some problem areas in town. So that is ongoing. Both of those should be moved up to ongoing.
You bet. Okay, great. I think this one, under strengthen code enforcement, provide educational resources to homeowners and landlords, assist them in the property maintenance. That was something that Dawn had brought up, right? It's maintaining property, that kind of thing. So there's some activity going on that one, right?
Yeah, it's ongoing. So that's actually on the agenda for, I think it's on the agenda for Friday. I have to go look. But anyway, Representative Dave Jasinski offered up to the town that we should really look at our safety requirements for folks that are renting their residences. And so we are working to update that. I can't remember if it's on the agenda for this Friday or not, but we are working on it.
Yeah, I think the new form is on the agenda. I haven't looked at it yet, but there's something about it on the agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Has have the safety requirements been documented? Is that what you'll be reviewing on Friday's meeting?
I think the requirements, we're just updating them, updating the language. We gave it to the town attorney to look at.
Okay.
And what kind of spiked this was an incident that happened early last summer at one of the residents that was being rented.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been looked at by the attorneys, and it'll be up to the commissioners if they want to move forward with it.
Got it. Okay. All right. On to natural resources. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. I think all of those are ongoing. So let's skip then to infrastructure.
All right.
That's on page.
Yep, 8.
Hmm.
So Jim and I were looking at evaluate the feasibility of a stormwater kind of fee structure that could be used to maintain, operate, and enhance the current aging stormwater collection system. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but we kind of do that now. That fee, I believe, comes from transfer and accommodations tax. Is that what we use to fund the infrastructure?
Well, we put 20% of the building permits goes into infrastructure. And I think there's also a contribution from parking revenues, daily and seasonal parking revenues that goes into infrastructure as well. So there is a funding stream. But I think what this meant was intended here was some sort of a individual property owner fee structure to support infrastructure needs. And I don't think we've talked about that. Dave, you may have more recollection on this than I do, but I think that was the intent here. And it's something I think that Budget and Finance talked about at one time as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Phil.
If I'm thinking back on this a while, we discussed that the beach tax is restricted to the ocean side, and that it would take something in the town's charter or whatever to allow some of that beach tax fund, which is large, a lot of money in it, could be used on the bay side too. I'm going back a couple of years, but this was discussed.
Right.
There was, but I think the way the beach tax is documented, it's hard to break it over into anything use on the bay side. There was some discussion in Budget and Finance for 2 successive years about a comparable Bayside tax that hasn't been carried forward. But what's the status? I heard mention of there's a comprehensive stormwater management plan that's been developed, and I listened in on the last commissioners meeting, and there was some discussion and actions on that, and you guys have a lot of momentum and activity going on that already. But there is a comprehensive plan for stormwater management and replacement, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll comment, Bill, you can jump in obviously, but yeah, there is a master plan. It was developed and I think approved back in 2016, 2017.
Right.
So, I mean, in some sense, it's a little out of date, but there have been some projects that have been pursued
Right.
With Center for Inland Bays. And we talked a little bit about this at the Climate Change Committee.
Yep.
And again, doing the rest of it, all of the projects that we have not pursued, at least in 2017 dollars, the total cost would be in excess of $8 million. But, it is something we need to come back to. We need to revisit that. I think the infrastructure group needs to revisit that master plan. And we need to see, how much of that we can continue to pursue with the resources that we have available. The town's doing a great job of looking for other sources. We have allocated up to, I think, $478,000 that could be used for the infrastructure fund. But as Bill talked earlier in the Climate Change Committee, they're looking for grant money actually to pay for some of those things that would have been paid for by the infrastructure fund. So, I think the town's making the best use of the resources available at this point.
Except to say that 20% of the the accommodations tax and funding, what is an $8 million project is there's a big gap there, right? So,
Sure.
Bill, let me ask you a question. If you had, a blank check, how soon do you think all the projects that are on the drawing board for stormwater upgrades and fixing could be accomplished? Is it in like a 2 to 3 year time frame? Most of that could be accomplished if money were no object.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the map on my wall on the stuff that they've mapped out that needs to be replaced. It could definitely be done in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Just for as Gary said, the $478,000, that's just for Bayard Avenue in McKinley Street.
Right.
You still have 3 other projects, not quite as big. One of those we would have to actually dig up and replace the pipes. So you're probably talking you could get it done in 2 years. You're probably talking another $400,000 on top of the 478.
But where's the 8 million number come from then for the total town infrastructure replacement?
Well, that's the number that's in the master plan, or it's it's been developed by Center for Inland Bays based on the master plan and what's been done so far.
Right, so to replace a street with pervious pavers, which are the most expensive, right? Back when they did that plan, and I think it was Dagsworthy Street on the ocean side, which is a shorter street. I think it was $175,000 just to do the street with pavers back when they did that plan. So I think that may be part of that $8 million that Gary's referring to.
Right.
But the stormwater drain replacements and fixes, you know, the total thing, including all in, is $8 million. It was estimated. Can we ask infrastructure to take a close look at, if you were to do all these projects, what the total amount might be, you know, short of the 8 million, so we can see if we need to create more of a funding source for this? Because, you know, I sense that there is a need for greater funding than what we can currently get, even with matching funds or grants. And we need to understand what, you know, how much we could do, because, you know, the progress that's being made now seems great. But as you just said, there's another couple of projects you could do, you know, right behind that if the money were available. I think we got a little bit of a gap between, you know, do we have enough money to do things if we could, you know, get things, you know, on a track. You see what I mean? Gary, do you have, in the infrastructure committee, are they looking at this going back to the 2017 plan at all at this point?
It has been talked about. I don't know that the commissioners have said specifically to the infrastructure committee, please do this, but it's certainly been talked about. And, you know, however it gets done, it needs to be revisited. You know, it's probably a combination of commissioners, and it may involve climate change committee, but infrastructure really needs to take a close look at it, because it does have specific projects. It does have, as I recall, some financial numbers associated with it. And, you know, we need to get some recommendations on what to do next and where to get the money to do that.
Seems like it would be in the wheelhouse of the infrastructure committee to address that soon, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, all right. Why don't we make a suggestion that in this bullet, evaluate feasibility, if not so much the fee structure that might be, you know, put into, you know, some sort of property owner, but the funding that would be needed to really, you know, accelerate the project and get it closer to completion in a timely manner. Okay, we'll spend enough time on that one. Anything else on infrastructure, Bill?
No.
Okay. Cultural resources.
Well, wait a minute. On infrastructure, if we could go back to page 9, the second block there, I just want to identify one of them that would be identify and try to secure funding to improve streetscapes and landscaping throughout the town. So, you know, what we've been able to do is get some folks on Bellevue Avenue that said, hey, we'd like the end of our street on the ocean side to look a little better, and it has. So we gave them an estimate, you know, how much it would cost the town to actually do the work that they wanted, include the bike rack, possibly the speed bump. We came up with a figure, and they said they'd be willing to donate that money to us. So the work was done. So in that one, that should be moved to probably ongoing. And I have somebody that lives on Sweet Street on the ocean side that saw the Bellevue Street project and asked me how much it would cost to do something like that at the end of their street. I said, you need to get together with the folks on Sweet Street, make sure there's a consensus that's what the folks want done, and then come back to me and we could discuss how much it would cost. So that needs to be moved to ongoing.
Yeah, and I would add to that too. I think this is also a focus for the marketing committee. They've had a lot of discussions about this, and, you know, continue to look for ways to improve the way the town looks.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. All good progress. All right. Cultural resources, moving right along here. Dewey Beach Way of Life. The only thing we haven't done is the last one. And I think there actually probably is some activity going on that, right? Open space.
Yeah, that's all going. Again, you talk about what we did on Van Dyke Street by making that a swimming area, actually with a lifeguard and a swimming area roped off. And then you look at the boardwalk that was down there that the commissioners, before I got here, had worked on. You know, the seating that we've put down there, the new bike rack that we have there, the gazebo. And then we are looking to, if we get the money on a grant, update Sunset Park. We want to kind of market that as a place where you can have a wedding, get your photos there, and then, you know, wherever they have the reception, possibly at the Lions, because it's right there. They can walk right across the street and go to the Lions Club for the reception. But both Van Dyke and Sunset Park are two of the ones that are ongoing.
Great. So that'll be moved into the ongoing capabilities. That's we pretty much close out that whole topic. Sorry, Mike. This is going crazy here. All right. Economic development.
So on that one, the last bullet there, I just thought the relationship we have with the Dewey Beach Partnership is outstanding. With Highway 1 has been outstanding. Working with those organizations, you know, Highway 1, we did a COVID, you know, Vax Day. We also did that with Dewey Beach Partnership. We did a COVID Vax Day, and we continue to work with both of those organizations. So I think that should be moved to ongoing.
Sure. Good.
And we work well with the chamber. I mean, Carol's great to work with. So again, that should be ongoing.
Mm-hmm. Financial stability, predictable revenues and sources. Well, infrastructure needs, long-term capital improvement plan. We're not quite there on the capital improvement plan per se, but clearly the evaluation of the infrastructure needs is active and ongoing, right? So.
Yeah, for infrastructure, but I am working on a capital improvement plan for the town.
Right.
Looking at the funding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gary, but some of the money that is left over at the end of the year goes into that long-term capital improvement plan, correct?
Well, it could go to there, it could go to infrastructure needs as well. It's just a decision that the commissioners need to make. I think it's just important to note that we now have a capital improvement fund, which we did not have previously. So, you know, I think that's certainly an accomplishment and a really good start toward making some of the capital improvements that the town needs to undertake. So I would agree ongoing is really the appropriate classification for this one.
Cool. Okay, moving along. Climate change and sea level rise. We just finished the less than an hour ago now, the first meeting of the newly formed climate change committee. So we'll be attacking that problem, and you know, it'll take a while to get our arms around and just describe the problem in enough detail to begin to formulate our action plans. But it's moving, and I guess we can move several of these into you know, underway.
Right.
And Bill, you can update that, you know, over time. A lot of these are more specific, like the FAR stuff, grant funding for technical assistance, but we'll be addressing all those things in the coming months.
And Gary, you may be able to, you know, this down at the fourth block down there, I think it is, consider examining the floor area ratio, the FAR for the NR and the RR districts. Jim seemed to think that was completed.
Yeah, I think it can be considered complete at this time. I mean, there's certainly other things that we could do, but we certainly took action in this area, specifically for those two zoning districts.
And then the one right under that should be ongoing, because we are looking at grants to pursue opportunities to improve resources. So I think that should be moved to ongoing.
Right. Okay. Freeboard, that's a little too specific. First flood insurance rate map. Gary, you shared with me a flood insurance rate map just yesterday.
Well, it was just the flood zone map, just to show, you know, what sections of the city are in what flood zone and what the elevation requirements are for each of those zones.
Yeah, but it's set as ongoing anyway. Okay.
Yes.
On the preservation of nature.
I think we should probably have that as ongoing, because we do work with the Center for the Inland Bays. I would think that would be meeting that objective there, that it's ongoing or underway.
It is. I think that one's marked as ongoing already.
Okay.
That last one.
So, well, the last one on the protect and improve the town's natural environment. So on the first one there, the commissioners passed a a silt fence, I believe that Commissioner Jazinski had brought up. So for example, in Rehoboth, in some HOAs, before you can, once you start building on a lot, you have to have a silt fence up around it to keep the soil from running out and going into the stormwater drains. I believe we passed that, didn't we, Gary?
I believe you're correct, yes. I can't remember specifically, but I think that's right.
So I think that should be under, completed, accomplished, that first block.
Which one?
Consider examining the zoning and related to municipal code regarding open spaces, planting for native plants, trees, reduction of untreated stormwater runoff. Those silt fences keeps that untreated stormwater runoff from going at, while they're building the properties.
Okay, preservation of nature, anything report there? That's our last one.
That's what I thought we were just going over. That's
Right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was just hitting those.
Okay, got it. Okay, so you'll update those.
Yep.
Okay. I think, there's plenty of good progress here. It's funny, in the years since you've been the town manager, how many of these boxes have been checked moving forward. So kudos to you. And I think, the main thing that I'm taking from this is I think, it's time to start to think about improving or investing a little money in our traffic and our parking issues. And other than that, it sounds like you've got a good handle on most of these things already. And a lot of these boxes can be moved over and checked up, and we'll see. We won't probably meet again until after the June publication of the town progress report, but we'll meet, later in June or July and review that. And I think that's good for today. Anybody have any other things they'd like to bring up or discuss at this point?
Yeah, Dave, I think it would be a good idea to have the committee review a draft of the report before it goes to the state. I believe it's due July 1. And, I think getting the committee's input on, what the exact status of each of these boxes that we have,
Okay.
I think would certainly be helpful.
Happy to do that. That means I guess we should schedule something for early June as our next session to review that, and Bill and Jim Dedes would have an opportunity to update the document by that time, and we'll have a meeting in early June.
Does that timing work for the town? I don't want to impose something on you that doesn't work.
No, that works.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, that sounds good. We'll see if we can, I'll put out a request for, the first, or, let's shoot for the first week in June, and we'll probably be able to do it virtually still at that time. If need be, we can do the anchor location, but we'll do it the same way. And, somewhere in that time zone, we'll schedule the date as we get a little bit closer.
Great.
Okay. Anything else for today, folks?
No.
All right, thanks much. And can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Cheers. Have a good day.